My name is Margaret Sullivan. I'm 60 years old, live alone in a small apartment in Pasadena, and I've been managing a small bookkeeping business for the last 15 years. I wasn't always a bookkeeper. Once upon a time, I was Mrs. Thomas Carter, wife of a successful financial advisor, mother to 2 bright children, and the woman who held the household together like clockwork. But that was a long time ago. 2 weeks ago, out of the blue, I received a text message from my son Nathan. It simply read, "Mom, I'm hosting a dinner party for my birthday next weekend. Can you come Saturday at 7 o'clock? Nathan hadn't invited me to anything in years. His birthday celebrations usually happen in Aspen or Cabo or some luxury resort I couldn't pronounce, much less afford. I always sent a card with a modest gift tucked inside, a gesture rarely acknowledged, but this text felt like a fragile thread reconnecting us, and my heart leapt at the chance to see him. I texted back right away, "I'd love to, what should I bring?" He replied, "Just yourself, 245 Crestview Lane." Of course, Nathan and his wife, Claire, had recently bought a home in Beverly Hills. I had only seen pictures on Instagram, sleek glass walls, sharp lines, and million-dollar views of the city below. It was the kind of house I'd managed accounts for before, but never stepped into as a guest. All week, I worried about what to wear, how to act. I settled on a simple black dress I once wore to a client's funeral. It was the nicest thing I owned. I had my hair trimmed and styled at the mall, nothing fancy. I even bought a small gift, a silver frame I found at a vintage shop, and inside it, a photo of Nathan as a boy, building sand castles at the beach. I'd spent hours choosing it, remembering how his laughter once filled those sunny days, hoping it might remind him of who we used to be. On Saturday, I took the bus as far as I could, then called a rideshare to take me the rest of the way up the winding hills. The driver eyed me suspiciously as we passed rows of luxury homes. "Big party?" he asked. I smiled softly. "It's my son's birthday, he lives here." The house was even more extravagant in person. Floor-to-ceiling windows, designer landscaping, and a long circular driveway filled with expensive cars. I barely had time to catch my breath when the front door swung open. There stood Nathan, tall, poised, dressed in a navy suit that made him look like his father. "Mom," he said, his voice unreadable, "you made it." I stepped forward to hug him, but he didn't return the gesture. His coldness stung, a sharp reminder of the distance that had grown between us. Instead, he moved aside and motioned for me to come in. "Everyone's out by the pool?" he said. "Everyone?" I asked, suddenly nervous. He nodded. "Just a few friends from work. Claire's family. Dad and Laura, too." I swallowed hard. I hadn't seen Thomas or his new wife in years, not since Emma's wedding, where they sat at the head table while I was tucked near the kitchen with distant relatives. The memory of that humiliation burned, but I pushed it down, clinging to the hope that tonight might be different. I forced a smile. "Oh, that's nice. I didn't know they'd be here." Nathan shrugged. "Dad helped with the down payment on the house. He wanted to see it. Of course he did. Of course they all did. But no one had thought to ask what I wanted or how I'd feel. Not even my son." Walking through Nathan's house felt like stepping into another world. Modern furniture, abstract art on the walls, ceilings so high they seemed to scrape the sky. I followed him past polished marble floors and glass staircases, my sensible shoes clicking faintly beneath me. I couldn't help but remember the life I used to live. I met Thomas Carter when I was 19, waiting tables while taking classes at community college. He was charming, well-dressed, and 10 years older when he proposed just 6 months later. I thought I'd been rescued from a life of exhaustion and low tips. We married quickly. 1 year later, Nathan was born. 2 years after that, Emma arrived. For almost 2 decades, I was the woman behind the man. The planner, the caretaker, the host of every dinner party, every PTA meeting, every family photo. I put aside my own dreams of finishing school, of working in nonprofit advocacy, because someone had to hold the family together, and I was good at it. I thought Thomas appreciated it. I thought the kids felt safe because of it. Then one afternoon, he came home and told me he was leaving. There was someone else, someone younger, someone who made him feel alive again. He moved out the next day. I wasn't just heartbroken, I was blindsided. The house, the car, the savings account? Thomas had protected himself with the help of his expensive lawyer. Mine, provided through a low-cost referral, was no match. The settlement was brutal. Child support barely covered groceries, and alimony was gone before I could exhale. I was 43, with no degree, no recent work history, and 2 teenagers who blamed me for driving Dad away. "You let yourself go," Emma once spat during an argument. No wonder he left. I weighed the same as I did on our wedding day, but Thomas had rewritten the story, and my children believed his version. I found a job managing accounts for small businesses through an agency. The work was hard, the hours long, but it paid enough to keep us in the school district. Over time, I built my own list of private clients. Some of the businesses I worked for belonged to old acquaintances, women who used to invite me to charity luncheons when I was Mrs. Carter. Now they left to-do lists on marble counters and called me Maggie like I was the help. Nathan got into USC on a scholarship. Emma went to a private marketing school in New York. Both married well, both built successful careers, and both drifted further and further away from me. Every unanswered call, every canceled lunch chipped away at the love I'd poured into them, leaving me to wonder if I'd ever been more than a convenience. Now they rarely call unless they need something. Meanwhile, I live in a modest one-bedroom. Everything I own has a story. A lamp from a thrift store, a chair from an estate sale, a bookshelf I built myself. It's not much, but it's mine, and no one can take it from me again. The backyard was filled with the sound of soft jazz and clinking glasses. About 20 guests mingled around the infinity pool, holding flutes of champagne and laughing in their sleek cocktail attire. The city of Los Angeles sparkled beneath us like a postcard. I stood there for a moment, gripping the small gift bag, unsure where to go. Claire, Nathan's wife, waved from across the pool. She was elegant as ever in a red designer dress that fit like a glove. "Margaret, what a surprise!" she said, kissing my cheek lightly. "A surprise?" I asked. "Nathan didn't tell you I was coming?" She smiled a little too tightly. "Of course he did." I handed Nathan the gift. "Happy birthday, sweetheart." He took it without opening it. "Thanks, Mom. I'll put this inside." He turned away so quickly I felt like a delivery driver dismissed after dropping off a package. I searched the crowd for Emma, but she wasn't there. I hadn't seen her in months. She'd canceled our last 3 lunch dates, work, her husband's family, or a last-minute cold. I sipped the glass of wine Nathan had handed me, trying to keep my hands from shaking. I stood alone on the edge of the terrace, pretending to admire the view. The city lights were stunning, but they didn't warm the hollow feeling in my chest. Thomas appeared behind me, just as polished as ever, his silver hair gleaming under the terrace lights. "Margaret," he said, his voice still low and smooth, "you look well." "So do you," I replied. Then came Laura, his wife of 15 years. She smiled with the kind of smile that doesn't reach the eyes. "Still working with the bookkeeping business?" I nodded. "Yes, business is steady." There was a pause, awkward and thick. I asked about Emma. "They're in Milan this week," Nathan replied casually, joining us again. "Fashion week, work stuff." "Milan?" Emma hadn't mentioned Milan when she canceled our lunch the week before. The betrayal cut deeper than I expected, her silence louder than any argument we'd ever had. My throat tightened, but I forced myself to smile. "That's wonderful for her." I wanted to leave. I didn't belong in this world. Their laughter sounded different now, more brittle, more hollow. The language of wealth had changed my children, shaped them into strangers. To them, I wasn't a mother anymore. I was a memory they didn't want to frame. I finished my wine quietly, standing like an ornament no one had asked for, and I waited just long enough to be polite before slipping away into the house, looking for a bathroom, looking for a moment alone to breathe. The hallway was silent, cooled by central air and the absence of welcome. I wandered slowly, careful not to disturb anything, until I came across what looked like a home office. It was minimalist: glass desk, leather chair, a few tasteful sculptures. Everything in this room had a price tag I couldn't begin to afford. I was about to turn away when I noticed a framed photo on the desk. I picked it up, expecting to see a family picture, perhaps even the beach photo I'd gifted him earlier, but no. The frame held an image of Nathan, Emma, Thomas and Laura posing beside a lavish Christmas tree. They looked perfect, polished, complete. I wasn't in it. My heart shattered, not from surprise, but from the finality of it, like a door I'd been knocking on for years had been bolted shut. My hands trembled as I set the photo back down. The message was clear. I wasn't part of the family they wanted to remember. I heard voices coming down the hallway and stepped out, nearly colliding with a group of young men. Nathan's friends, I guessed. "Sorry," I mumbled, trying to move past. One of them glanced at me and turned to Nathan, who had just joined them. "Is this your mom, the one you told us about?" Nathan's smile stiffened. "Yeah," he said. "This is my mother, Margaret." I extended my hand. "Nice to meet you." The young man shook it, his grip too strong. "Nathan's told us about your bookkeeping business. Very entrepreneurial." Nathan forced a laugh. "She's been at it for years." "What's it like?" one asked. "Managing accounts for businesses?" Before I could answer, Nathan cut in. "She doesn't work for big corporations or anything, just regular small businesses." I found my voice. "Actually, many of my clients are fairly well known. I've managed accounts for more prominent firms than some executives." Nathan's face darkened. "Mom, don't exaggerate." "I'm not," I said evenly. "I've built a business that supports me. That's something to be proud of." His friend tried to laugh it off. "My mom's an accountant, boring as hell." "There's nothing boring about honest work," I said. Nathan's voice dropped, just loud enough for them to hear. "She does bookkeeping because she never finished college. She doesn't have many options." His words were a knife, twisting into the sacrifices I'd made for him. The nights I'd stayed up balancing his future while mine crumbled. "I manage accounts," I said, my tone sharpening. "Because when your father left us with nothing, I had to find a way to keep you and your sister in school. I manage accounts because it let me be present when you needed me. I manage accounts because it's honest work and I do it well." The silence was painful. "Can we not do this now?" Nathan hissed. "It's my birthday." "Yes," I replied softly, "and I've felt unwelcome since I walked in the door." And just like that, the dam inside me cracked. Not out of anger, but clarity. I turned, walked past the infinity pool, past Claire and her picture-perfect guests, and left. No one tried to stop me. Outside Nathan's gate, I stood on the sidewalk with my purse clutched tightly, the city sprawling behind me. The house glowed like a monument to everything I'd once lost. I called a rideshare, slid into the back seat, and turned off my phone as it buzzed with texts. I didn't need apologies. I didn't want explanations. At home, I kicked off my shoes and poured myself a glass of wine. My apartment was small, but it was peaceful, filled with things I chose, not things I settled for. And that night, I decided something. For 15 years, I'd held on to a truth so heavy, it warped my spine, kept me silent, kept me sacrificing. But not anymore. I went to the bookshelf and pulled out a small folder tucked inside a hollowed-out cookbook. It was a name and a number I hadn't dialed in over a decade, memorized just in case I ever got brave enough. I'd carried it like a secret wound, afraid of the chaos it could unleash, but now I was ready to let it bleed. And now, The man who answered the phone had a voice like stone. "Harrington," he said. "Mr. Harrington, it's Margaret Sullivan. I think it's time we had that conversation." He didn't hesitate. "Come by my office tomorrow morning." Lawrence Harrington was my ex-husband's former business partner. Years ago, before everything fell apart, Thomas and Harrington built a financial firm together. But when federal investigations started sniffing around, Thomas sacrificed Harrington's reputation to protect himself. Harrington had reached out to me quietly after the divorce, told me he had evidence, proof, that Thomas had hidden over $10 million, 0 cents in offshore accounts during our marriage, money he should have disclosed in the settlement. I refused to use it. I thought protecting Nathan and Emma from scandal was more important. I thought if I stayed silent, I was being noble. But nobility had cost me my place in their lives, and I was done paying that price. The next day, Harrington's office was everything I imagined. Polished wood, leather chairs, a view of the city like a movie backdrop. "I kept everything," he said, sliding a thick folder across the table. "The documentation, the account numbers. He never knew I found them." I opened the folder. It was all there. Wire transfers, shell companies, statements from banks I'd never heard of. $10 million, 0 cents, and then some. Money Thomas had stolen, money I'd balanced books without. I could almost hear the years of my labor, the calluses on my hands, screaming for retribution. "What do you want to do?" Harrington asked. I closed the folder. My voice was calm, clear. "I want justice, not just for me, but for the version of myself I buried 15 years ago." That night, I slept deeper than I had in years, because secrets rot your soul when they sit too long in silence, and mine was finally ready to speak. The following week, I called in sick to my bookkeeping jobs, the first time in 15 years. I had work to do, but this time it was for myself. I walked into the office of attorney Daniel Pierce, a man whose reputation preceded him. His floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked Century City, and the leather chairs in his waiting room probably cost more than my entire apartment. I paid his consultation fee in cash. Then I handed him the folder. He skimmed the documents slowly, his expression sharpening. "Mrs. Sullivan," he said finally, "you have a strong case. Divorce fraud, especially in California, can reopen a settlement at any time if you can prove concealed assets." "I can," I said. "That's what this is," he nodded. "You could be entitled to half the value of those accounts plus penalties, and if we go further, perhaps a portion of all assets he acquired since then. Property, business equity, even the Santa Barbara vacation home. I want all of it," I said. "Everything that was mine before he buried it. Are you prepared for the fight? Because this won't be quiet. He'll come after you with everything he has." I smiled. I spent 15 years managing other people's finances. I'm not afraid of dirt. Later that afternoon, I sat across from Rachel Lee at a small cafe in Santa Monica. She was an investigative journalist for the Los Angeles Times, known for unearthing white-collar corruption. "I've been waiting for this story," she said, eyes fixed on the folder. "I tried chasing it years ago, but it got buried." "Not anymore," I said. I explained everything, how I'd stayed silent, why I was done protecting a man who'd built his fortune on lies. I told her about the nights I'd cried alone, the years I'd let their disdain erode my worth, and how I was finally ready to reclaim it. She promised a thorough investigation, and not a word printed until every detail was verified. It would take weeks. I was willing to wait. By the third day of silence, my phone was buzzing non-stop. Nathan called. Emma texted. I didn't answer. On the fourth day, Emma was waiting outside my apartment. "Mom," she said, rushing up to me. "Where have you been? We were worried sick." She pushed past me into the apartment, her eyes scanning my small space like she didn't recognize it or me. "You just disappeared," she said. "Nathan said you walked out of his party, and then you wouldn't answer any of our calls." I set my purse and the folder on the table. "Something did happen," I told her calmly. "I woke up." Emma blinked. "Is this about what Nathan said? He didn't mean—" "He meant every word," I interrupted. "And so did you, in your own way, for years." Her face flushed. "That's not fair." "No," I said. "What's not fair is everything I gave up so you could succeed, only to be treated like an embarrassment. I've carried your father's lies to protect you, and all it's done is make me invisible to my own children." She sat stunned. I stood unshaken. "Your father destroyed this family," I told her. "I'm just finally telling the truth." And for the first time, Emma had nothing to say. 3 days later, the Los Angeles Times published Rachel Lee's exposé. The headline hit hard. Former financial advisor hid millions from ex-wife during divorce, documents reveal. There, in the third paragraph, was my name, Margaret Sullivan, the ex-wife who had finally come forward with the truth. The article was thorough, damning, and precise. Rachel had traced the hidden accounts, verified the transfers, and spoken with former clients who suspected they'd been defrauded. It also detailed how Thomas Carter's former business partner, Lawrence Harrington, had taken the fall for crimes he hadn't committed. The fallout was immediate. Thomas's clients began pulling out. The firm issued a press release and his lawyers scrambled. That same morning, my attorney called. Thomas's legal team is offering a settlement, he said. $5 million, 0 cents, and a promise to make it go away quietly. I laughed. Tell them I want half of everything plus 15 years worth of lost dignity. I wasn't just fighting for money, I was fighting for the woman who'd been erased, the mother who'd been forgotten, the truth that had been buried too long. That night, I poured myself a glass of wine and stepped onto my small balcony. My city shimmered in the distance. A message from Nathan came through. "Mom, my job is on the line. Please call me." One from Emma followed. "James's parents don't want to proceed with the baby shower because of the article. Please, we need to talk." I didn't reply. Their words, once sharp enough to wound, now felt like echoes of a life I no longer owed them. Instead, I stood alone in the night air, breathing deeply. For the first time in years, I wasn't the one cleaning up someone else's mess. I was standing in the middle of my own life, and I wasn't ashamed of a single inch of it. Justice had taken its time, but now it had arrived. Cold, clear, and long overdue, and it had my name written all over it. If this story resonated with you, share it with someone who needs to reclaim their voice. Subscribe for more true life stories, where silence ends and truth begins. My family invited me to my son's lavish birthday party, only to shame me in front of strangers. But what they didn't expect was that I'd been holding on to a secret. For 15 years, I kept my ex-husband's crimes buried to protect our kids. Not anymore. With ironclad evidence and the help of a whistleblower, I exposed his multi-million-dollar fraud, reclaimed everything I lost in the divorce, and made sure they could never erase me again.